I've just always enjoyed just sitting and talking and listening about the city of Fayetteville. And so, Jerry, you've got some stuff you want to share with us today, and it's great to have you on the show.
Well, it's great to be here, Mayor, and I appreciate that, and I agree with everything you said there. We do have a good time, and I appreciate your support for the society, for my writing, for everything Fayetteville. Everybody does, and we appreciate it very much. Yeah, I was going to talk about a few things having to do with the Washington County Historical Society, and also about the Historic District Commission, which I'm on as well. Some of the things we're doing, things we've done, and kind of things we're going to do. And I wanted to start with the Historical Society and a couple of things. And again, you were there, which we appreciate your support all the time. One was the annual meeting this year. Our annual meeting is held in October every year, and this year we had 174 people there, which is the largest crowd in recent memory. And it was very gratifying to have that. And I would like to take claim for some, take credit or something, but I can't. It was really the people that we honored. We had 4 Distinguished Citizen Award honorees, Dr. Mitch Singleton, Dr. Betty Battenfield, David Malone, and Susan Young, who's a good friend of yours. And it was them. That's why we had so many people, because they're so well liked, all those people, and so deserving. So that's one thing. And the other thing you attended with us is we had the rollout of this a walking map of historic Fayetteville.
Yes,
and maybe they can see it that way if I held it. The people involved there were Bill Kincaid, Charlie Allison, and Ellen Compton from the Historical Society, and it was produced with a grant from the Fayetteville Area Community Foundation, and it was printed by a company called DOXA, D-O-X-A. Beautiful walking map. Actually, I call it a...
Hold that up.
Yeah, okay. I call it a...
That's a beautiful map.
It is. It's wonderful. A beautiful thing. Well done. I call it a driving tour of Fayetteville because I'm older. But you could walk in. In fact, I hope to do that myself because it's really fun. And it's just a lot of the, the historical places. And now, Old Main and Walker Stonehouse, places like that around town that people may know. So that's what we've done.
Well, now, there was the park, we were at...
We were there.
Tell a little bit about that.
I will. I'm a big historical guy, and I'm a big fan of Wilson Park, and I've written about it. I know the history really well. And we worked with the Fayetteville City Parks Department. Carol Jones and Connie Edmondson is the head of it, but Carol Jones is the person I work with directly. And through their help and their financing stuff, we put a nice little interpretive sign down there right along the walking track between the little ball field and the swimming pool that tells the history of Wilson Park and the 3 major figures that were involved with, which is Albert L. Trent, Noah F. Drake, and Charles Morrow Wilson. And so and I love that sign. Not long ago, I was down there, and there was a couple there reading it. So I just kind of butted in there and said, look, we just did that. And it was really nice that somebody's actually reading it. It's a beautiful sign. I'm really pleased with it and happy because it tells the real exact history of Wilson Park, and I'm really happy about that. And you were there for that as well. I appreciate you for that.
That was a great day.
It was, yeah. If you wanted me to go on, the other thing I was going to tell you about the society is a couple things we got going. Now, though, of course, we had done more things, and we're going to do more things, but these are just some highlights. We got a grant from, I think it's called the Curtis H. Sykes Grant, for what we call a Black Settlers Grant. We got funded to pursue what's been kind of ignored, forgotten, just not talked about, is the African-American history of Fayetteville and Northwest Arkansas. So we have this really great project going now that's going to be lead up to, at least this year, to the Black History Month in February, but we hope to keep it going in the future. And we're going to talk about the people that were here before the Civil War and after the Civil War, the people that, African-Americans who settled Fayetteville, where they lived in town, what they did, all that sort of thing. It's a great project. So far, we're pretty far along with the bibliography, which is we've got something like 50 entries, and the state had a list before, so they only had 1 entry about African Americans in this area. Now we've got a bibliography of at least 50, which is a great start.
Yeah.
And we have 2 videographers, Trey Marley and Sarah Moore, and they just recently interviewed Betty Davis, who I'm pretty sure you know, real sweet lady who knows of the African-American history here. She's Buddy Hayes' little sister, the musician. And they interviewed Betty for like 6 hours or 4 or 5 hours or something last Saturday, so it's going to be great. So that's where that is.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Oh,
yeah, it's a wonderful project. I'm really pleased with it. The other thing we're doing, one of our missions at the Historical Society is we're supposed to be out in the county, but over the years we became sort of Fayetteville-centric, including myself, because it's my hometown. But one of the things we're doing now is we're getting out in the county, and we've made contact and have contacts with local historians in all our little communities, Cincinnati and Summers and Lincoln, and of course we have a really good connection with one of our board members in Prairie Grove, but also Cane Hill and West Fork and Elkins and out in the Goshen area where my family's from. So that's the thing. Another thing I'm really pleased with. We're getting them to write history for us, so we get input from the community, and it's already showing up in our journal flashbacks. So that's another really wonderful thing that we're doing. I'm happy about. So those are the Historical Society things I was going to talk about. Do you want me to talk about the commission, or do you have some questions?
Well, what kind of projects are you working on? What are you working on right now?
In the society?
Yeah, I know that the Oak Cemetery is.
Oh, well, that's in the Historic District Commission. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's they kind of go together, don't they?
Yeah,
they kind of blend.
They
exactly.
do.
That's why I'm kind of glad I'm on both of those. The society and the commission.
And maybe you could explain the difference.
Okay, yeah, the Washington County Historical Society is a 501c, a nonprofit organization. It was created in 1951 by Professor Walter Lemke, and everything we are today is the result of Professor Lemke and the work he did.
Let me tell folks a little bit about Professor.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I think it's from Wausau, Wisconsin. And he graduated, I believe this is off the top of my head, I think he got his journalism degree at Northwestern. And he was at a meeting, and our old University of Arkansas president, John C. Futrell, was up there, and he interviewed Professor, or Mr. Lemke at the time, and they needed a journalism to flush out the journalism department, and they hired Professor Lemke to come down here, I think, in 1928. And so he started, and he was an absolutely remarkable individual. He wrote all the time for the local paper at that time, the Fayetteville Daily Democrat. He had a number of columns across there. He also did the basic research for my baseball book that you were talking about before that I read, the Angels in the Ozarks. He actually covered that professional league that was here back in the 30s. He had a column called Angel Food.
That's right.
Yeah. And in World War II, he had he had a newsletter for all the service people. Started out with his journalism kids that went into the military during World War II, and I've read most of that. I remember a big chunk of those letters that came out monthly, I think, or whenever he could get them out. And that was like considered this incredibly wonderful thing because all the service people really appreciated it because he would connect them with one another. And he was even in contact with people who were prisoners of war in Germany and stuff. Absolutely amazing thing he did. And so he basically formed the journalism department. They had been teaching it, but he built it into a real department. And then he wrote for us locally, and then in 1951 he created the Washington County Historical Society, of which I'm president now, and we continue this tradition now for, what is that, 63 years. And it's all because of him. He was the editor of the Flashback for the first 17 years until his death. He was working on the issue when he passed away. An amazing guy. Anyway, so I always like to give him lots of credit. Now, the Historic District Commission, I don't know the history of it as well because I know that it was formed here some years back, but I've only been on it a couple of years. I just recently stopped being the chair. But we're involved in some things that kind of connect up like with the Historical Society work as well, one of which you just mentioned, Oak Cemetery, which is, I don't know if this is kind of a weird way of wording it, but the traditionally African-American cemetery here in town, just south of the National Cemetery down on Government. Actually, I think it's on another road. I can't think of the name of it. It jogs over there. And we nominated it for the National Register, but there are too many new burials for it to qualify, so we're trying to get it on the Arkansas Register of Historic Places. And on December the 3rd, I'll be going down there because I was the actual nominator. I'll be going to the State Review Board, weather permitting. I'll be going down there as the nominator. The Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, AHPP, they've taken over for us, and so I'm just going to be there as a kind of just because I was the nominator, but I'll probably get to speak about it or something. But my hope is that will make the Arkansas Register. I'm pretty sure it will. That allows them, the caretakers of the cemetery, then to apply for funds for grants and things like that, so they can, I think they might, a new fence might be in order, some, maybe some new stones, things like that.
Sure.
Clean up, just some money maybe we can get for the people to help. Because it's been maintained by the community on their own without any help for I think it was first started in 1867. And so they've done it all by themselves all this time. You practically ignored again, like everyone sees the National Cemetery, big beautiful thing, and then behind it is the African American cemetery, basically ignored by everybody but the black community itself. But I think that's changing now. So that's one thing on the commission that we're working on. Another thing is we got a grant, and I think this was from AHPP also, a $5,000 grant to create a database of historic structures in town. And we're hiring someone. They're in the process now of hiring someone to do that work. And we're going to start with the Washington Willow District. I thought that'd be the easiest thing, to create that database with all those homes. I think the goal would be to eventually have all historic structures in Fayetteville listed in this database, which would be really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, your folks are helping us a lot, city planning and goes like that. Of course, city planners help us on the commission all the time. And I think Andrew Gardner's ahead, and Quinn Thompson and Jesse Fulcher has been assigned like permanently to us, and we really like Jesse, and he helps a lot with that work. So that's what we've been doing on the Historic District Commission. And then what we have on our coming up is that we have created some areas with the help of the AHPP people. We have like a little 5-home, what I'm calling a mini historic district down on West Center and West Mountain and South School. We're calling it, because it was originally Block 24, so we're calling it Town Block 24 Historic District. And there's 5 homes, I think they're all Victorian-looking homes, right down there at that spot at the end of the Center and Mountain. And we're also have nominated the house that's on the grounds of the Sophia Sawyer Seminary down here on West Mountain. There's a plaque on the south side, and there's I think it's blue now. It was my doctor's office when I was a child here in Fayetteville. Dr. Fowler, a great man. That's an individual building we're applying for National Register status on. And then thanks to you and your permission, we're also going to try to get our fire station #1 on the National Register. One of the young men from AHPP that came up here, that was designed by T. Ewing Shelton, and for some reason this young guy is a fan of T. Ewing Shelton. He just loves his work, so he wants to do that. And I believe Mr. Shelton designed either the Legion Post or the Guard Armory, but we're going to do that too. And that's another. Now that Judge Edward has won again, we need to pursue with her the attempt to save the National Guard Armory. So we have that intact section of Old Fayetteville there. And then the last thing I have for you is that the old post office right here on the square. Square. I tend to call it square. I've been back home too long now. The square.
That works me.
I catch myself doing that all the time. On the square, we have a protective covenant that was, I think it was 30 years ago. We only have 3 years left on that. So that's some time, but we're trying to work with the owner now.
Sure.
And we want to make sure that that gets saved and remains the centerpiece of the renovation of the square. The whole, revitalization of downtown, I think, really centers on that building in a lot of ways. It was built in 1911, as you know, and it was actually, when I was a kid, it was still active. I remember going in there and using it. But it's kind of because a lot of the other square was torn down during the late 60s and early 70s, and that urban renewal phase was kind of, I think most people realize, was something of a mistake. Could have saved a lot of the stuff. But we saved quite a bit. And but with the post office in the center, I think that's the key to our downtown.
Let's talk about some buildings that I'm just curious about, Jerry. There's a building that's across from Center Street that they used it for the free health clinic. It's an older building that sits there.
Are we talking about the National Guard Armory?
I believe so.
Yeah,
And
by the old courthouse,
now
right?
Now that's the one that's got the old where the jail was.
Yeah, in the 70s or something. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I can. The National Guard Armory was built in 1929. I do not remember off the top of my head who designed it or who built it. It's 1929. One of the things that's interesting to me about the Guard Armory is that it actually looks newer than the American Legion post, the stone building next to it, but the post is 4041. That building's it was kind of modern in its own way, the guard armory. I wanted to say, for two reasons. One, I like that entire block there from Center down to the little, just past the mountain.
Yes.
Everything is intact there. We basically 100-year-old buildings. We have the courthouse in 1904, 1905.
Right.
We have the guard armory 29. The Legion, that's 4041. The old jail, the county jail, is 1897. And then, as I think we talked about before, if you go around behind, it was used as it was connected to the guard armory back when they built the guard armory.
Yeah.
But that little square rock building is actually a Fayetteville City jail from 1885.
Yeah, somebody told me that.
Yeah, and I found that, and I found the old city council meeting minutes on that, and so I have all the details on that. And so I want all that saved if possible, because that's just, like I call it, the last intact section of Old Fayetteville. It'd be really nice for tourism, for our own heritage, and for economic tourism to have a section like that that's untouched, that no one can ever tear down.
Yeah.
That's what I want it to be.
Yeah.
We may not get there, but the goal is that.
Yeah,
My goal is that.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people like it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, anyway, so that's the building, and there's a plaque there, and I can't remember all the names, but it lists a lot of the guys who were movers and shakers in Fayetteville in 1929, which would have been the year after our centennial, in 1928.
And let's talk about the warehouse down on Dixon Street that's...
Oh, the Porter Produce on West Avenue. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I don't know too much about... I know that... I can't remember... I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you the exact date, but sometime in the early 1900s that building was built. And for many, many years, a family named Porter had a produce market there. And people would, buy their... I guess it'd be almost like a farmer's market, basically, but it's an old produce store. And it's made out of bricks, and it's just one of those things. Please don't tear it down, and it's been saved so far. I appreciate everybody saving it. And there's been talk about maybe using it as maybe even creating a little small Fayetteville museum in there, and other parts of it for artists and stuff like that. So it's right next to Grubbs down there if people are looking to figure out where that is. But it's a wonderful old building. I love the little old buildings like that sitting around. Just don't want them to go away. And there's a lot of those around town, but I could talk about all day long about the little buildings that don't want them to go away. I'll give you one real quick one. Down on School Street where Hillcrest Towers is. Hillcrest Towers is where the old Fayetteville High used to be.
Yes.
And and I missed that building so bad. I went there. It was a junior high when I went there, and it was a beautiful building built by Albert M. Burns, who built this town basically in the 1880s and up to 1900, buried over in Evergreen Cemetery. Directly across the street from Hillcrest Towers is a little Cleaners now.
Yeah.
A little square building.
Yeah.
Well, that was a little restaurant in the old days. It was the Bulldog Cafe when that was Fayetteville High. And all the kids could come out at lunchtime and eat and grab something to eat there. And when I was there, it was the Bull Pup Cafe because it was a junior high.
How cool is that?
And so that's the kind of thing. A lot of people may not remember that anymore, and they just see a little Cleaners and a little building. And there's little buildings like that. Down on West Avenue, forgive me for running along here.
No, I've got a couple more. I was going to just...
I'll do one real quick one. Down on West Avenue where there used to be the U of A Archaeological Department in a big old red brick building. That was a garment factory when I was a kid. My mom worked there on West Avenue, going up by Lafayette.
Yeah.
Well, just to the north of that garment factory is a little tiny kind of yellow brick building. That was a little tiny grocery store when I was a kid, and a man named Mr. Devers ran that grocery store. And this was in the days he would bring you your groceries. They would deliver the groceries, and if you were hanging out, he would actually give you a ride home. He was a great guy, and I just love that. And I don't know how many people know anymore that that's what that was. And then of course there's that Magnolia station there on the corner that's on the register.
Yeah.
But something needs to be done there to save it. Somehow, because it's kind of going to fall apart if nothing happens. That's really old too. That goes back to 1925, I believe. That Magnolia company.
Now there is another building around Mountain Street and I can't remember the street, Jerry, but you just go down the hill. It's an older building before you get down to School Street.
On the mountain?
It's off of the mountain. It's, where that Cleaners is, I think it's that street you can just drop down, and there's an older building that sits back on the right.
Oh, I'm not picturing it.
Was it
You went down by the bicycle shop there at Spring and school?
What is that name of that building? I cannot.
I'm afraid I don't know that one.
Okay.
Without off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's okay. I like it.
Because I keep thinking about these old buildings around.
If I knew, I could. Sometimes I don't know, and I have to look things up too. But while we're doing that, just for fun, that bicycle shop that I was talking about was on the northeast corner of Spring and School.
Yeah.
Back in the 40s, that was the Johnson Plumbing Company. And my family knew the Johnsons. They lived right down the street from us. In the old days, we called everything a street, even though there were avenues.
Right.
We lived on Hill Street.
Right.
And they lived they were a wonderful family. They all had nicknames. And I believe the dad's nickname was Blondie, and Mr. Johnson they owned that. And every one of their sons worked for them, and we were all friends and stuff. Great family. The mom was a substitute school teacher and stuff like that. Great family here in town. They're still around. Johnson Plumbing's still here. I don't think there may be a boy one of the daughters has left for sure. Sally went to school with me, but I'm not sure how many of the men are left in the family, but it's a great family, and that's a nice building, because every time I see it, I think of their family. Because it's almost like the Colliers. They've been here forever, and of course the Colliers have really been here a long time, since the early part of the 20th century.
Now you've got me thinking of all these places, College Avenue.
I just get to go, and
we can go.
I could do this for hours on end, because I just love all this stuff so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to have an unlimited interest in our local history.
Well, I guess.
Anything else? Is that good enough for today? It's great talking to you.
You too. You too. I'll tell you. So, is there any final comments you'd like to make to the people out there?
No, just no, not really. Just if you're not a member of the Historical Society, please join. We always appreciate that.
That's right. And
help support us in our Historic District Commission work to save as much of the town as we can. Preserve as much of Old Fayetteville as we can.
Wonderful.
We appreciate that.
Wonderful. Well, folks, as we close today, as you can tell, I've really enjoyed this interview today. And Jerry and I would get together. We talk about historic buildings and streets and Old Fayetteville a lot. And I always enjoy his company and the great relationship we have as we work together to preserve our great history of this city. So, folks, I would encourage you, if you don't know the history of this city, get to know the history of this city, because it's a great city. As I always tell folks as we close, this city will be what we make out of it. Our past always determines the present and the future. So, y'all have a great day until I see you again. You have a great day. And I'll see you.